Our bald king, Tony Ferrari, joins as we start the journey through the 2025 draft class.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at the Reef, also the co-host of Locked On NHL. Tuesday's episode, I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network, we cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we start the long journey that is the 2025 NHL Draft. Tony Ferrari, our good friend from the Hockey News, joins where we kind of just get to dip our toes in, get to know the 2025 draft class. We talk about the top four guys, kind of how he has them ranked, their kind of elevator pitch for each guy. Talk about Victor Eklund, some of the other guys in the top 10, and just some superlatives for this draft class. So before we get to all that, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. And making his triumphant return to the podcast, our bald king, Tony Ferrari. How's it going, buddy?
Not too bad. I'm enjoying the cooled winter weather here in Ontario, just in time for my furnace to break and be replaced tomorrow. It's a wonderful time.
It was like 61 here today. It was like really nice.
It was 61 in my house earlier today.
Yeah, it's the same thing. So, it was really nice outside today. California weather, can't beat it. So, as we did last year, and as we like to do every year, kind of the big setup as we kind of start covering our draft coverage here, because of course the Sharks are well on their way to another top 5 pick, even with Macklin Celebrini doing insane Macklin Celebrini things. Sharks going to be probably, hopefully, fingers crossed, maybe the last top 5 pick before they kind of start entering their fun, frisky phase. But still a really big draft. And I think this draft is a lot different because the last couple of years, it's been, okay, it's Connor Bedard. He's really good. And then some other guy. And then last year, it's Macklin Celebrini. And then who's the guy after? This year, you can make a legitimate case for 4 different guys to be the number 1 pick. So let's start there. Weird, right? 4 different guys being the potential number 1 pick.
Yeah, it's a weird group because I don't think any of them are going to be that Macklin Celebrini level guy or the Connor Bedard level guy. But they're all pretty close. Like they're all right kind of under that level of player. And you have 4 of them. So it's a good year to finish last or second last, kind of where the Sharks are right now. It's a good year to finish there because you're seeing improvements from the young guys. You're seeing Celebrini do everything that you ever hoped he could be. He's basically the poor man Sidney Crosby grinding out there doing so many great things. Then you have Will Smith, who's really started to come on as of late. And you have William Eklund. I almost slipped up and called him Victor. But you have William Macklin doing good things. I've liked his game this season. So you're starting to see the pieces come together, and then you got the vets on the team doing their thing too, and keeping things in the losing column. So you're not getting blown out every day. That's the nice thing. I remember last year when I came on with you, we were talking about how they got blown out like 7-2 3 times in a row or something like that. Like it's been a better year.
Yeah, I think they have the most one goal losses this season, which is, again, I will take that over the hey guys, the Sharks lost 7-1 again tonight. Yeah. Let's break this down. So
it really is the masterclass in like a rebuild. Basically, you're losing to make sure you have a good pick, but you're just barely losing. You at least you make it entertaining. Celebrating gives you at least something every night where you're like, okay, that was sweet. So and you're not Chicago. So that's awesome.
Chicago. Yes, you are not Chicago. So, okay, let's start. Let me start before we kind of the 4. How do you have the top 4 guys ranked? And I guess we'll kind of go in that order. So, as of right now, we're recording June 15th. How do you have the top 4 ranked?
It's January 15th. I would love
January
if it was
15th.
June 15th.
Whatever.
But right now I have Michael Misa, Michael Misa, Matthew Schaefer, James Haggins, Porter Martone.
Okay.
And it's an interesting group because I think me having Misa at number one, I've had him there all year long, is a little bit different than most people. I think everyone has Schaefer or Haggins there, but I think Misa's just been so good and he deserves it. And it really is that tight among those four guys. But you're starting to see some separation at the back end.
Okay, let's start with Misa. Then you have a number one. What makes it? Give me your elevator pitch. Why is he a potential number one pick? Why are you drawn to him?
I think he's the closest thing to what Macklin Celebrini is this year. He's the most complete player, I think, of the group of them. He's really shown a lot more skating ability this year. He's coming off an injury last year where he played through it and he was good, but he wasn't great. And this year he's come out and he's been absolutely great. He's scoring at a goal a game, basically, almost 2 points a game, or maybe he's at 2 points a game right now. This kid's been an absolute monster in the OHL. He's just so intelligent, and the way he chains plays together, it's very Macklin Celebrini-esque. You're seeing him do all the little things that everyone's been praising Celebrini for this year, and you're seeing Misa do that this year. I think you look at him and you go, he's maybe John Tavares, but faster. He's that Sidney Crosby mold of player, that he's an elite grinder. I don't think he's going to be Sidney Crosby. Let me be very clear on that. But he's that style of guy that he's going to be able to go and do everything that you want him to do. And I think he's a true center. I think he's definitely a guy that plays down the middle at the next level. And he's doing so at both ends of the ice. So I think Macklin, I was going to call him Macklin Celebrini. I think Michael Misa is an absolutely phenomenal player.
Okay, let's go to the defenseman, Matthew Schaefer. I know a lot of Sharks fans, again, when you're picking this high, it's always best player available. But the Sharks have invested very heavily in their forwards. I know they picked Sam Dickinson 11. I know a lot of Sharks fans are kind of circling Schaefer if they get that first or second pick. Matthew Schaefer is the top defenseman in this class, right? And there's not much question about it.
No, I think it's pretty surefire Matthew Schaefer. Coming into the year, you had questions. There were some other guys that you're like, oh, yeah, maybe he can get up there. Maybe a Jackson Smith or even a Logan Hensler was highly regarded early in the year. But although I think Jackson Smith has been great and Logan Hensler's kind of fallen off at Wisconsin this year, Matthew Schaefer has just absolutely gone through the ceiling. The kid's I've seen some people go, well, he's not the fastest skater. I don't know. When you don't get touched, you don't really need to be the fastest. Your edge work is that good. Like, that's the thing with Matthew Schaefer. He's so mobile, so elusive. I think what he doesn't get credit for is he's a very good defensive player. The way he's able to kind of just dictate what the opponent's doing by skating at them. And he defends skating forward. He's doing it in a modern way. We see so many defensemen coming into the NHL doing this. It's not just, all right, they're coming on a rush, I'm going to skate backwards and just coast with them until I'm able to make a play. No, he's going in and forcing them to make a mistake instantly. So I really like his defensive game. And then his offensive game is just fantastic. He's able to move the puck so well. He's so creative, so cerebral. But the area of his game that I think is the best out of everything is his transition game. The way he's able to move the puck from the defensive zone to the offensive zone is better than just about anyone in this draft class. And it's as good as we've seen from it, pretty much any defenseman in recent memory. So I think that's where he really shines, even though he's very good at both ends.
I know, of course, right there, he broke his collarbone at World Juniors. There's a lot of concern about that. We talked about beforehand. If you're going to break, if somebody's going to get injured, like the collarbone's one where you're like, okay, like I'll take that because it's not like a ligament. It's not like a sprained shoulder. You're not like an ankle. Like if you fracture, like break your ankle or something like that. This one, if you have to pick an injury, this one feels like one that you can recover from pretty well, right?
Yeah, it was kind of a goofy injury too. He just skated into the net basically. He should have used his edge.
Maybe he needs to like stop for stop signs, like when he gets too close to the net or something. Yeah,
it was a bit of a weird one, but yeah, you break your clavicle, and I mean, when he comes back later this season, I'm not expecting him to be just unloading bombs, and his shot may be affected by it, but he's so much more than what his shot is. So yeah, I think he's going to come back. He's going to be fantastic, and we're going to go. He is right up there for first overall.
All right, the guy who's kind of picked as potential first guy, James Haggins, is taking the Will Smith spot at Boston College. Give me his pitch of a guy who, again, like kind of in that Will Smith type of mold.
Yeah, a little bit. I think he's that Will Smith, Jack Hughes, somewhere in between there. Very, very skilled. His playmaking ability is impressive. The way he's able to just kind of see the ice and dictate play is what really makes him special. He's the best playmaker in the draft, in my opinion, from the forward group, and he doesn't have the same kind of electric speed that Jack Hughes has,
Mhm.
but there's more there than I think what was there with Will Smith, and I think that's what's really fun to see with this kid. I think he's fit in pretty well with Ryan Leonard and Gabe Perreault after a bit of a feeling out period where he was still getting like a point and a half a game or whatever it was. So it's not like he was not producing. So he stepped into college. He's been fantastic. You saw him at the World Juniors. He was arguably their best forward there. And yeah, the big reason why Ryan Leonard looked as good as he did at the World Juniors, and I love Ryan Leonard, is because James Hagan was doing a lot of the heavy lifting in transition.
All right. And then the final guy, probably the fourth of them, but
Yeah.
Porter Martone, big boy, 6'3", 208 pounds. Biggest of them, potential like power forward, like kind of what's Martone's game here?
Yeah, he's a power forward. He's in that Matthew Tkachuk, Brady Tkachuk mold. I think he falls somewhere in between those two guys. I don't think he's necessarily going to be the 100-point player that Matthew Tkachuk has shown himself to be, but maybe he's a point-of-game guy the way Brady Tkachuk is. He's got the jam. He's got the finish around the net. He goes to the hard areas. He plays with power, and he has a lot of skill in his game too. I look at the way he plays, and I go, man, like there's a lot of times where he'll beat a defender with power along the boards, and then he comes off and he dekes a guy. And you look at that blend of skill and power, and you're like, that's pretty special. Like there's not many players in the draft that can do that. So I think the one thing with him is I'd like to see him just get his pace up a little bit more. Sometimes he can get a little bit slow and kind of laggy in the play, but it's not because he's not a good skater. It's not because he's not fast. He just plays a little slower sometimes. And I think because of that, that's kind of why he's been relegated to that fourth spot for a lot of the year. And I think that's why some people are getting a little cute, in my opinion, right now, and they're going maybe a Victor Eklund goes above him, a guy Carter Bear I absolutely love, my favorite player to watch in the draft class. Maybe he gets into that top five, and I mean then there's still Roger McQueen, and we can have that conversation later if you want. But there's a few players that are starting to get some mention in the top 5, top 10 as well. But I think Porter Martone is absolutely fantastic, and whatever team drafts him is gonna be pretty happy when they don't have to worry about that left wing spot for a while.
We know GMs, they love big boys. You can't teach size. So, I think he's, by the end of the process, I'm sure he will be that in the top 4 here. So, all right, before we continue with Tony, we talk about Victor Eklund. We get to know the Swedes a little bit, round out the top 10. Just need to take a quick break. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed when it comes to hiring. Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you find the right candidates faster. If you've ever been in the spot where you need to hire like yesterday, the pressure's on. Every day without the right person is a setback. That's exactly where Indeed sponsored jobs come in handy. Make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. Let's switch gears, and you mentioned one of them, Victor Eklund. There's kind of 2 Swedes here that kind of topping, probably in that next tier of guys here. Let's start with Victor Eklund, of course. Sharks fans be keeping an eye on him, brother of William Eklund. A lot of the same stuff, but also like Victor's like just like a pit bull, dude. Like he is not the biggest guy, but he plays big, right?
Yeah, Victor Eklund brings a lot of the same skill, brings the same package of tools. He just does it a bit more aggressively. I think that's the thing with the difference between the brothers. I think whereas William Eklund is a bit more tactical, he thinks about the play. He's playing tic-tac-toe. He's out there playing chess. You put a chessboard in front of Victor Eklund, he's going to flip it over. Like that's the kind of player he is. He's aggressive. He goes into the corners. He throws hits. Like there's one time I was watching him playing the Allsvenskan, and he's out there and flying around, buzzing, goes in the corner, just tries to throw the biggest hit. Like you see this hit in junior hockey and you're like, oh, he killed the man. But he just kind of bounced off the guy because he was a 6'6" defenseman. And
Yeah.
he still got the puck. That was the crazy thing. Is like Victor Eklund still took the puck in the middle of throwing the hit. So it's not like he's letting his size be an issue and whatnot, because he does play bigger than he is. So I love Victor Eklund. His playmaking is really good. He's got a great shot, just a wicked snapshot. So I think he's going to be a guy that if he does end up on the Sharks, it's going to be pretty fun to watch.
Oh, the Ekli. I'm all here for the Ekli combination. I don't know. I still think the Sharks have to win a bunch of games. I think they potentially slide into that position.
Yeah.
But I would be all over the Ekli. That would be a lot of fun. The other kind of big Swede, is kind of probably going to be right there with Eklund as the first European players picked. Anton Frondell. Give us the lowdown on him.
He's an interesting player because I think I have more faith in him than the general public does. And you're starting to see him fall down draft boards a little bit because he started the year a little bit slow. And I think part of that is the last 2 years, he's just had such bad luck with injuries. He broke his hand, but I think a puck hit him when he was trying to block a shot, and just little plays. He fell into the boards and had a lower body injury. Like little things that have happened to him that have kept him out for like short periods of time. And this year he's had a lot of instability with where he's playing, whether he's at the junior level, the men's level, going internationally. So you're seeing him start to really catch his flow over the last month or so. And I think the way he's played over the last month has been absolutely fantastic. I think he's still, for me, his highs are still so good that I'm like, this is a player in that Leo Carlson-esque mold. I think he's a guy that has some of that in his game, and he's not quite as big, but he still brings that playmaking. He still brings that mature approach to the game. And I think he's got a wicked shot too. So I think Anton Frondell, although he's falling down some draft boards right now, he still sits at number 6 on my draft board. And it's pretty firm for me right now. I think this kid is only going to rise the rest of the season. And if he's not, it's probably because people don't watch the Swedes all that often.
Yeah, poor Swedes. One, make it easier for us to watch it in North America. Yeah. That's my big thing. It's so hard to watch it. Anyway, just not like watch it, but just like have access to it. But as amateur, I just like to watch hockey. But yeah, make it easier for us to watch it. Anyway, who are some other names to know that are going to be kind of in that top 10 range? And I'll let you kind of, wherever you want to go with this, whoever you want to talk about, some guys in the top 10. It's just names to know as we start this process.
Well, I mentioned Carter Bear earlier, and I'll start with him. If you like Victor Eklund, you'll love Carter Bear. The kid is an absolute bull in a china shop. He's only 6 foot and 180 pounds. I actually interviewed him earlier today. The way this kid plays is just foot on the gas, never stops trying. Almost every shift, he's out there stripping pucks in the offensive zone, picking off passes in the neutral zone, throwing hits in the defensive zone. Like, this kid never stops trying, and he's got a really nice skill set. He's got a great shot. He can finish around the net. He's got a ton of speed. It's so funny. When I interviewed him, we're going over some video together, and there's a play where he gets out on a breakaway and he's 15 feet ahead of everybody at this point. He beats everybody, and he like stumbles a little bit, and he doesn't fall, but like in the middle of watching it, he goes, I don't like that goal because I almost fell. Meanwhile, he just like dangled the jock off the goalie. Like, what are we doing here? Like, he's so good. I love this kid. He plays with such high pace, and that's what you need at the NHL level. So I think Carter Bear is going to be such an annoying complimentary player at the next level. Jackson Smith, I think, is a defenseman that I deserve mention here. And he's a guy that has all of the tools you want in a defenseman. He's got size. He's got mobility. He can throw hits. He can make a pass. He can be an offensive guy. He can be a really good transition player. And he defends the rush really, really well. His problem is every once in a while, his controller turns off, it seems. And he's just out there like vibing. And you're like, what happened on that shit?
A little Sam Dickinson in him, right? Where
he's got a little like Sam Dickinson.
That brain fart where you're just like, what are you doing here, dude? Like,
but when he's
there.
Good, he's good, he is very, very good. Yeah. So I think Jackson Smith is going to be a player that's drafted pretty high in this draft class as well. It's going to be an interesting top 10 because once you get outside that top 5, really, I've kept Victor Eklund in that first overall conversation as like a dark horse all season long just because of how high pace and how mature he does play. Realistically, I don't think he's going to be in that top 5 conversation, but I think he deserves to be on that periphery of it. So I think once you get outside those top 5, you start to really get into the weeds of which team likes this kind of player or which team wants that kind of player. Like, I'm not going to be shocked when Roger McQueen goes in the top 10. In a lot of his hype rode on that back of a 4-goal game to open the season. He's huge. He's 6'5" or 6'6". He plays center. He's got a ton of skill. He can deke and dangle, but like there have been times where I'm like, are we going to move our feet here, or are you just going to deke everyone out while coasting through the neutral zone? Like, he's got that level of skill. He's got a good shot. I really like what he could be, but there's just a lot of like what he could be, right? So I think that's the biggest thing with him. And I think Lyndon Lakovic is a bit of the opposite. He's got that speed. He's got the size. He's got the tools, but he's another guy that I think needs to connect the dots a little bit more, but he's a really fantastic player too. So if you want size, there's a few options there.
All right, before we finish up with Tony, ask him some questions, including which guy he doesn't think is getting enough attention in this draft class. Just need to take a quick break. I love going to live events, especially going to the Tank. You want to go see Macklin, Celebrini, Will Smith, William Eklund. You want to get down the Tank, you need to check out Game Time. Game Time has a new feature that makes it even easier to get to your favorite event. With Game Time picks, they filter out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. We used Game Time to go see the Sharks play the Flames around Christmas time. Got to watch sit behind Askarov. It was great, super easy, couple taps and tickets straight to my phone. Plus, with the app's own pricing, it shows the cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDON, NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Let's have some fun here, Tony. I have some kind of superlative, just, some questions I'll let you answer. So, one word you would use to describe this draft class.
Goofy. It's a goofy class.
Like Goofy movie, like Leaning Tower of Cheesa.
Yeah, Leaning Tower of Cheesa.
There's people listening to this who have no idea what we're talking about. It
hurts my heart. If you haven't seen the Goofy movie, go watch the Goofy movie. It's an absolutely fantastic film. Oscar worthy, really. But it's a goofy class. You've got an array of talent up top where you can go any way you really want. And then it really just opens up. There's 15, 20 names I've seen in the top 10. There's names I've seen in the top 10 that I don't have in the first round. But when someone justifies it to me, I go, okay, so we just like different players. Like, that's okay. We're just going to have different teams at the end of the day. So I think that's really what it comes down to. It's a goofy class.
Is it like 2021 where like kind of the same thing? We had like a bunch of different guys, and then like it was very much like, okay, you just kind of pick the guys you like here. It kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah, I think you have some of that vibe, but I think with 2021, everyone was so locked in on Owen Power being the first overall pick.
Yeah.
When, again, I think you probably could have had 3 or 4 names up there pretty easily to argue it, but everyone was just locked in on him. So I think it's pretty similar to 2021, yeah.
Okay. And again, we're very much like, especially if you're picking the top very high, like the Sharks are expected to be, always best player available. But of course, as you kind of move through the draft, you want to try to fill holes and needs. So this is a great draft class if you need a blank.
Complementary player that will fill out your team. I don't know if there's a guy that outside of those top 4 or 5, and even when you get to some of those the lower end ones, I don't know if there's a guy that's going to be your number one stud.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a lot of guys that have that skill set to do it either. Like, you have other drafts where you're like, oh, this guy could be a huge swing at 15, and he could be that difference maker. Cale Makar was drafted 4th overall. Um, Elias Pettersson was drafted 6th. William Nylander at 6 or 7. Like, you have these guys that could be like franchise cornerstones, but there was always like a risk with them. This draft class doesn't really have that. It has a lot of guys that are like, oh, he's going to be really sick on the second line. Like, he's going to, you put him next to Macklin Celebrini, and he's going to be fantastic. You just, like I said, outside that couple guys, you don't really have anyone that has the skill set. So you have a ton of complementary players.
It's like a meat and potatoes draft where you're gonna get solid players, but it's just not that like super sexy kind of like, especially after the last couple of years where we kind of got a little spoiled with some of the top end guys.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, it's fine. The next 2 drafts, there's plenty of fun guys at the very, very top too. So
yeah, they're all right.
All right, this is a poor draft class if you need a blank.
Ooh. That's tough. If you need, I was going to say if you need size, but there are options for size. It's really not a poor draft class for anything. I'd say defenseman, but you have Schaefer and Jackson Smith and a few other guys.
Maybe like a right-handed defenseman, like a top-end right-handed defenseman, or because like Schaefer's left, right? And then
maybe it is that like true difference-making right-handed defenseman because it's not a deep defenseman draft. I'll say that.
Okay. All right. One guy, and this could be anywhere in the draft class, but one guy who you think isn't getting enough attention.
Ooh. Eric Nielsen's the guy I'm going to go with initially. Swedish center, plays for Djurgården, just like Eklund. He did get a bump in the most recent Central Scouting list, but he was originally a C-ranked player. I have him at 10 or 11. This kid is just so dang smart. He understands how to play the game at such a high level. He plays on a line a lot of times with a player named Arvid Drott, who's also eligible for this draft. I love Arvid Drott because he's just kind of like, give me a mission and I'll go accomplish it kind of guy. Like, he's not going to think about what's going on the ice. He's going to just try to do what he does. Eric Nielsen is just out there letting him do his thing. And he sets him up. He plays off of him so well. I think Eric Nielsen's just a really smart middle six center type player that I don't know if you have a lot of those in this draft. So I think the intelligence that he has is really high end. I'd say Carter Bear, but he's getting a lot of love lately.
It's just you are driving the Carter Bear bus, right?
Yeah, I pretty much am. I don't know if anyone listens to the show has ever watched the Scouting live streams, but if you do, check them out. I'm on there pretty often this year. And we actually had the debate.
Tell Scouch he owes me for that promo, so he can send me a check.
Scouch will pay you in
he's got all the money. Yeah,
he's got all the money. Shekels. But no, we actually debated a little bit whether Carter Bear could challenge Porter Martone for the top 5. Like, he's a guy that I think has that kind of game. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can get to that level.
All right. One guy, and I think you kind of maybe already answered this a little bit, but one guy's a little too high so far, at least for your personal taste.
I will go a different way because I kind of did answer it by saying Roger McQueen a little bit.
Yeah. But also McQueen, you're not thinking about the merchandising. The merchandising, Tony.
I know. It was funny. When he scored a goal earlier this year, his team tweeted out "Ka-chow," and I was like,
"You know it."
I respect it. I respect the hustle.
The ka-chow, like the merchandising is
you have to change your colors to like red and yellow.
Half the NHL is wearing red anyway, so it'll be fine.
Yeah, that's fair. But I think the guy I'll mention here that I think serves his purpose, and I think he's going to be an NHL player, and he's going to probably play more minutes a night than I would play him, is Keishon Aitchison. I think he has a purpose in the game. He's a very physical player. He's a belligerent psychopath at times. I've never seen a guy try to set the tone in a prospect game the way he did at the Canada or the CHL USA Prospect Showcase. Just absolutely trying to murder LJ Mooney when he didn't have the puck. So I think Keishon Aitchison would be my pick because he is that all physical, all tools, like raw defenseman. I think there might be some more offense in his game than what we've seen so far because every once in a while he flashes it. But I think NHL teams are going to go, we want you to just seek and destroy, and that's going to be your role. And if you want Radko Gudas in the top 15, take him, I guess. But I think for me, I tend to lean towards guys that have a little bit more impact than that. But if you can get them a little later than that, you probably get a pretty solid NHL defenseman.
So the Ottawa Senators are 100% drafting him, right?
Yeah, he's a Sen.
I can just picture it right now. He's got Sen.
Sean Aitchison as a Senator would be horrifying for teams in the Atlantic Division because like Mitch Marner or like Braden Point go in and he will try to murder them like in cold blood on the ice, and he will not care. He will laugh in their face.
That's why I'm like right now, like the Sharks haven't played the Ducks yet with Trouba and Radko Gudas, and I'm scared to death for Will Smith and Macklin Celebrini. I'm scared to death
like
for them.
Sean Aitchison is like a Ducks like first pick in the second round type pick.
Oh, like I could see it.
Oh, it'd be fun.
Would be fun. Okay, we'll get you out of here on this. The player you get most excited to watch, like, no, wouldn't have to pay you. You're like, let me dim the lights, put on the candles. I'm putting on whose tape?
I'm gonna. So I will give Carter Bear. I've talked about enough in this episode, and I've said it enough times. Michael Misa is a guy I love, absolutely love watching. Just the nuance in his game, he's just so good. But the player I'll say that's a little bit down draft boards that I really enjoy is Matej Pekar. And he was unranked on the Central Scouting list, and I think it was a crime. This kid is so fun to watch. He doesn't play with a ton of like strength and power, but his timing and his ability to swoop in at just the right moment, advance play, and do things like that. I love watching this kid play. And then the final one I'll give, because I love to speak, is Zeb Lindgren, a Swedish defenseman. This kid, I think, deserves a little bit of first round love. He's at the end of my first round right now. And he's just so fun to watch. He's so skilled. And I think there's more to go with his offensive game. He does a lot of really good things defensively. And you look at his point totals and you're like, oh, yeah, he's like a two-way defenseman kind of guy. And yeah, I think that's there. But I think there's a more dynamic element to his offensive game that he hasn't really brought out this year. So Zeb Lindgren, if you get the chance, check him out, because he's a guy that it's pretty entertaining from time to time. All
right. Tony, you've said it all. Where can the people find you, buddy?
You can find all my written work at thehockeynews.com. I've got Sour rankings coming out this week. I've recently just put out a Calder tracker where Celebrini is number 1A, with Hudson being 1B, because those two have been absolutely ridiculous this year, and tons of other stuff. And then check out my Game Tape with Tony videos on the Scouching YouTube channel. I've got Michael Misa, Porter Martone, a few others. And then we have Carter Bear coming out soon, and Matthew Schaefer coming out soon. So definitely check those out, because a lot of top end talent for this draft class has been on the show already this year. So it's been a fun one.
All right. Thanks, buddy. I'm sure we will talk to you again real soon. I'm sure, buddy.
Yeah, I'll be back.
Thanks again to Tony for making his season debut on the Locked On Sharks podcast as we again start the 2025 draft coverage. So we'll continue to look at, if you're kind of new to Locked On Sharks, kind of new to the process, we'll do deep dives on players, kind of get to know their game, hear from a bunch of different experts. We have kind of a nice cast of friends who make their rounds on here, include Tony, some of the other guys. But thank you to Tony for coming on. So if you love draft coverage, and you should, because the Sharks are going to be picking top 5 again this year, now's a great time to subscribe. So make sure you follow along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at My Fry Hole. Until tomorrow. Bye, friends.